All righty, Rudy or James,
Hello.
as the case may be. Hello,
Yeah,
hello, hello.
I'm here.
We are here. It is another episode of HQ. Where are you today?
I'm doing good. Still on my long vacation and having a good time. Running around doing errands with my wife and tinkering with a few miniatures. Getting ready to do a lot of baking tomorrow. Cookies out the yin yang.
The yin yang. A lot of cookies.
hmm It is a lot of
Is that
cookies.
is
It
that
is.
is yin yang in between a billion and a trillion? Exactly where does yin yang sit at?
Well, yin yang is sort of an approximation. It's a limit. You kind of take it as you
I see.
approach your frustration level, and you just stop wherever
It's a
when
random
the box
number.
is
It's
full.
a random number.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
All
literally.
right.
I mean, you got to subtract the ones people eat and the ones that the dogs get. It's hard to say for sure.
Be careful. The dogs get too many of them. You'll pay for it later. What was
Yes,
that? What was that
I've been
smell? Oh my God.
the
Dog's
dogs.
been
I
eating
know the
cookies.
dogs. Oh Lord.
Oh, well, I'm doing my best just to keep warm. Talking about that before the show. It got cold here.
hmm
I think it's supposed to be back in the 50s, like 36, and like 50 miles an hour out of the north.
Oh
Yeah,
Lord.
it's really,
I mean, it is Kansas,
it
right?
is. It is. It does.
The last piece of terrain is in Colorado.
Pretty much. Yeah. Well, and everything blows from the north. So
hmm
it's all Nebraska and the Dakotas and Canada's because it
Yeah.
blows almost straight south.
I've never been there, but I've heard that the Dakotas get really cold.
Yeah, I've got an aunt part time, and come winter
Mhm.
time, she is a Floridan.
Ready to
Yeah,
move.
she lives.
Take.
She goes to their house in Tampa for the winter. So I don't blame
Oh
you at
man.
all.
Mere dudes in the channel.
He
Nice to see
is.
you.
Yeah, a couple of more caught up here, and we'll.
Yeah, I'm really interested in tonight's subject. It's as far as I know, it's kind of it's not something we've talked about before. Let's put it like that.
It's a balmy 62 tonight here. I figured you were going to add that at some point,
Mm,
but my aunt does the same thing to her sister. Sends her pictures from sitting on their patio or their back deck next to their built underground or in-ground pool. Oh,
yeah.
wish we're here. January.
Mm,
That's when we get cold.
yeah. Yeah.
January and February are coming.
Yes, they are. And then
So,
right after that is virtual CavCon.
in March,
Yeah,
yes. I know you
we
mentioned that
do.
the other day, but had some things
Understand.
going on here this week.
Just
We'll
whenever
get
you're
there.
ready, I am ready to make some decisions so I can get to painting.
Well, maybe I'll work on that this weekend. Got sidetracked doing the live.
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool. I enjoyed getting to see that.
It worked out really well.
It did.
Um, so look forward to doing another one. I may not do two in a row in a day
hmm
again,
Yeah, that was
but
a lot of stuff.
a lot of stuff.
And I thought the new version of the Ryoshi is coming along nicely.
Yes, I actually have 3D file to print.
Woohoo!
So
I'm excited.
I did not get to that today. So hello, Valkyrie, KT, and the Hobby Habit.
Hey,
Welcome,
Hobby and Valkyrie.
welcome to the chat. All right. So tonight, I'm kind of going along with my Saturday game because it reminded me of something. I've been working on, and I've mentioned it a little more,
Hmm.
but I am working on a new initiative, um, so that it is more responsive to the game as opposed to being cards draw. Um, but it really came up again on Saturday when you're playing squad versus squad. Have one card deck for two squads. It gets kind of weird. You can do it. You can shuffle them. You can, but it's just kind of funny. So that's kind of where the initiative deck is kind of moving. To kind of deal with uh, low, smaller games, and also just to add a new element um, to it, make it a little more just not a deck of cards. That's my thought process behind it. But basically, what the new deck will have, and the nice thing is, all the new cards will have their individual art. I mean, it'll almost be like a deck of Magic cards, as far as that,
Mm.
with pictures, and everything like that. So that actually stand in for something. There'll
Hmm.
still be numbers and stuff on them like that, but there'll also be cards that are put in for uh, if you're using like the SIG card, bought that in an upgrade, buy an extra card to put in the deck, or you're playing a
Hmm.
Ritter and you have that extra card or whatever. Well, actually, these cards will be built for them. So there'll be a couple of them in. Put those into your deck just like you would any other card. So as opposed to trying to figure out which card is which, or which card did I need to take out, or whatever, you'll actually be able to see what those cards are.
Nice.
But basically, and it'll still be playing card deck size, so we're looking at 56 to 60 cards is where
Right.
we're going to be. I think that the I think that the CAV deck that we've got right now, I think has 56 cards in it. It'll be the same as that, maybe a little more. Um,
Hmm.
but what'll happen is there will be a set of, you'll have your normal cards, which are numbered, ace to king, or 1 to 12, however they. So we'll still have those. So you'll still have your normal cards you put in there for each squad, as you normally would do it. The next thing is there'll be a set of tactical cards, and these tactical cards are again, you get one of them for each squad um, that you have, but there'll be you can either roll a little chart, or if you just want to lay the cards upside down, because you'll randomly draw those cards. You won't actually get to pick which one you want to get. So um, each tactical card has something kind of unique to it. So maybe you draw one that gives you an extra command point for that turn, or it gives you a +1 to hit, or something like that. And it's only good for that activation. And then it'll go back into the deck. Shuffle it at the end. So right off the bat, if you have a squad versus squad, now you'll have 4 cards in the have your two normal turn cards, and then each model will have. Then there'll also be an additional um, tactical card that goes in there. And even though there's 2 squads, there'll be 4 cards. So you'll still draw, and as long as a squad is available to move, you'll keep using those cards. If the first 2 cards are drawn are the 2 turn cards, then no events come up that round for that turn.
Mm.
Okay, so they'll just get rolled back into the deck. But they're color coded to your side. So if you get a red tactical card, that means one of your squads will activate, and then you get the whatever that tactical card gives. So, any questions? You have anything you want to add there, James, before I go further?
Well, I mean, that's a whole that's a giant. There's a lot of possibilities there. I mean, the thing that you described already is, interesting. The idea that an event could happen. I mean, you could put any number of things in there that would give the game sort of an unpredictable flavor. Like a storm happens, an eclipse. Like a dust storm. It could be any kinds of thing,
Right.
right? Something that comes along and forces the players to kind of adapt to a changing situation that they didn't know about when they built their force. I love the idea.
Well, that and we'll get into that section. Right, the tactical cards are actually going to be just small little things. So, maybe you get an extra move action that you get to use
Hmm.
during that turn. Maybe it's a resupply card that allows you to clear a jam, something. Okay,
Ooh,
so and that's
that's
the reason I'm kind of leaning more as to that way you can change cards out down the road. So let's say you want to make that you want to
hmm
have something that you think needs to be in the game or whatever by laying the cards upside down or whatever and drawing out of them. That way you're not rolling dice and set to a
hmm
set chart or something. Just take those cards, turn them upside down, randomly draw one for each squad that you got, and then you add that to.
And let me make sure that I understood what you said earlier about the art. I think what you said is the cards would come with CAV centric art now.
Correct. Right, as opposed to being a generic play card or whatever,
Right.
there's actually art that'll be on the card, and which we've already started working on that. Got a couple artists that artwork specific to go on these cards. Um, they'll probably be 2/3 of the card art, and then the
Hmm.
bottom will have an explanation, or if it's just a turn card, it'll have its on there. Um, so so looking forward to that. I think it's going to be something that'll help. It'll add more cards to the deck, um,
Hmm.
as far as allow easier shuffling. So even if you have a 2 or a 3-on-3 squad game, now instead of 6 cards you would have on a 3-on-3 squad game. Now you have 12 cards. So a lot easier to shuffle. It'll be more of
Yeah.
an actual deck. And then, like I said, those tactical cards are color coded to your side. So there'll be a black deck and a red deck, a tactical set in your
Mhm.
deck, and you draw out of whichever side you're going for that game. And it acts as a normal movement card. So, but you also get the
Okay.
benefit of whatever card does that particular. It's a single. It only during that activation is the time it.
So the tactical card is an activation card with an
With
effect, is what
right
you're
with
saying.
something that adds just a little something. It's not enough that's gonna you're not gonna throw a nuke down or something like that, but it's just little things like
Right.
maybe um, you do double damage this. I mean, it's just little things like that we throw in there that will add a little randomness to the game, um,
Hmm.
and should help like putting the cards together and have another deck.
Right.
Now, the thing that you're talking about as far as whether there's a sandstorm, also in the deck is going to be a set of cards that we're going to call event cards. And an
Hmm.
event card is separate from the play deck. It'll be however many cards, however many events that we want to have in there. And again, at the start of the game, each side
Mhm.
will either roll or draw one of these event cards. But that event card lasts the entire game. Okay.
Okay.
So, you know, the example that you gave there of, you know, a dust storm or something like that. And again, those are things that we can come out with and add extra cards later that we can do
Yeah, awesome.
special cards for special events or something like
Hmm.
that. Um,
Christmas cards.
Christmas
I
card,
love it.
you get a Christmas deck card. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so
I'm
so
excited.
those are things, you know, that, and I think too that those can kind of help. I really look at them being more scenario based cards.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
they have things. So you know, one of the things that you know that can help with if you're scoring or help with the win or something like that. That you know that it gives you. It's almost like a little mini scenario. It may be, you know, it may be a little extra goal that you need to accomplish in the
Hmm.
game. You know, that may be
An
an
objective.
objective. Yeah, an objective that, you know,
Yeah.
it may be you have to get a model down into the deployment zone of the something like
Right.
that. That has to be done, you know, or you
Right.
can't win in that way. I mean, that's as of right now, that's the best way to do it. There might be a better thing that we can adjust or whatever, but you know, we don't want you to just throw the card off to the side and not worry about it. You're going to
Mhm.
have little mini objectives inside the main game, whether it's even just a kill or be killed kind of thing
Right.
that you have. So I also plan on putting there'll be just some generic cards in there that you can, you know, that'll be blank. One side will have a square, so if you write something on again,
Mm.
your own type of card or whatever you can. Um, but that's kind of the direction that I'm looking at the new deck. Something else, yeah, they'll just be blank cards that you'll be able as a player will be able to write something on if you want to or whatever, and then or you know,
Mhm.
and then later on, like I said, we'll have um, you know, for the CAVCons or special tournament cards or something like that.
Yeah.
You get that card, and you know, because you have to have that card in order to use the deck, and you really don't have to, you know, make actually say that.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that'll really help add another layer to the game without causing any. You know, we're not doubling the size of the game or whatever. I think a lot of the tactical cards will actually help speed. Um, One of the other things that I wanted to put in there as far as an alternate rule or whatever is um, I don't you can do it with a regular deck or whatever, but I want to actually kind of put it on paper and official looking is forced activation. So basically
Hmm.
what forced activation is let's say that you're each playing with three squads, 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this particular instance, when you pull out your turn cards, you will actually pull out card for your side, card number 1, card number 2, card number 3. Or if it's like an ace,
Right.
it'd be ace 2, 3. Whatever 3 are in order. So
Hmm.
what happens is when that card is turned up, then you have to move that squad. So if the first
Ooh.
card that flips over is your 3 card, you have to move your third
Yeah.
squad. Okay.
Ooh.
If your third squad is already moved for whatever reason, then it rolls to the next available squad. So in this case, it would go back to the number 1 squad. So
Hmm.
it might work out for you. It might not work. Might you know? So it's another layer that you can put in there that takes away from just the same old. Makes you think a little bit.
Mhm.
Make you work a little harder. So, but anyway, so that's my thoughts and ideas on the deck I've been. So, like I said, I've got a lot of the I mean, like I said, the turn cards and stuff are normal stuff, and that's what they're working on the art right now. Really kind of working on The
Mhm.
tactical cards. I mean, we could come up with 50 different things, for tactical cards, but we have to work with it of what deck we're going to build right now. But again, we'll add stuff as we go along. It may be that we
Mhm.
um, special mini that a card comes with, and if you get that mini, then you get that card, and that card is specific to that mini or so. A lot of things that we can kind of take advantage of down the road by setting up a more structured deck.
Mhm. No, I think this is a really nice idea. It opens up a lot of design space for you to be able to come in and without changing the game, just spice it up, give it a little flavor, push it in a slightly off center direction, depending on the kind of cards that you decide to put in there. I think it's a fantastic idea.
We can something too that can come off of it is as we do scenario book or put out
Hmm.
scenarios, we can actually set the events up in those scenarios. So if you play this particular
Hmm.
scenario, here's the event that's already being added to it. So,
Yep. Yep. Sandstorm in the Egyptian style place. That makes sense to me.
and you
Yeah.
could do something like that. Again, the tactical cards, I don't want them to be game changing. I want them to
Hmm.
have a little tweak on the game, but I don't want it
Right.
to be because in this case an airstrike card, that you
Right.
throw down and end up taking out an entire squad. That's not what I want this
No. No.
to be.
No.
Something smaller that may
Hmm.
help in a particular instance or get you out of a bind, especially if you've got a guy that's
Right.
been running around jammed, and you need unjammed, and I get an
Hmm.
unjam card that turns up. So those are the things I'm looking at for the tactical. The event cards will be a
So.
little of a game affecting thing, but it'll be to the
Mhm.
standpoint it's not going to um, something that you're going to have to do that we're trying, and you don't even have to use them if you want to use them. But by doing that, it makes you play out of your comfort zone and not
Mhm.
be so tied in. I have to kill the other guy. Well, no,
Right.
you can kill the other guy, but if you don't do this,
Doesn't do
it
you any
doesn't
good.
do. And they need
I
to be based upon too. Um, they have to be completed during the game. So
Mhm.
obviously, something like getting in a deployment zone, if you kill the other side before you actually get down in there, don't win.
Doesn't count, game
Doesn't
ends.
count
Didn't
because
make it.
yeah, you
Yep.
killed everybody before you got down there. Obviously, in reality, you can argue, well, if they're all dead, I can just walk down there whenever I want to. But for the sake of what we're trying to accomplish,
Right.
it has to be done before you kill everybody. That's what I'm looking at.
I I think for a tactical card, a perfect example would be just allowing you a single reroll.
Yeah.
So you draw that card, you wait until, I don't know, you jam or you run out of ammo or you burn out or something like that, and you're like, "I'm gonna reroll that."
Well, I
You
don't
might
know
get
that it would be
worse.
a total reroll, but it could be you get to reroll a d6. You can at any
Alright, that's
time
fine.
during your activation, you can take a
Sure.
d6 and reroll. So
That's still a reroll. But what I'm saying is, it could be very impactful depending on when you decide to spend it, but you're not in control of it. So you might reroll a 3 to a 1. So it's not guaranteed to save your bacon, but it might.
and because there's actually turn cards and tactical cards, like in my earlier example, but let's say
Mhm.
you could actually have, um, which would really suck, but it could happen since you have three turn cards and three event card or tactical for both sides, and you're doing a three squad versus three. You could legitimately all three of your turn cards come up, and all three of his tactical cards come up. So during that particular turn, all you would get to do is move, do your
Mhm.
normal activations, and then he gets all 3 of his tactical. So you wouldn't even get any tactical. And that's the reason, one of the reasons why they not need to be not so powerful that it's going to affect the game. You know, I mean, it could still that one roll can always, there's always a moment in a game that one thing. And you know, like when we were playing, remember it was the first game that I was playing with Nate or whatever, with Thunderbird shot the credit him and did 8 points or whatever, and then come back, and then the Thunderbird ended up losing. Weapons
PPGs.
Yeah. Well, no, he got critted, and he took like a 13 or something margin of success, and then when we crit, it was an 11, so it destroyed the targeting. He couldn't use his weapons for the remainder of the game. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, at that point, it was such a, I mean, he had the game won, but because of that one roll, all of a sudden his biggest guy was so big anymore, and allowed the dictator to go, oh, I can go over here and hammer on these guys for a little. I don't have to really worry about it. I thought that was kind
of. It is cool. It was a good game.
It was. Even though when I did the 1-on-1 versus playing myself, I think between the kind of divested the 2 sides of my brain. So one side was rock and one side was Terran, and I think with talking and with everything, I'd go off on these different tangents, and then I would, you know, go ahead and move this side. But then when it was time to move the other one, I had to actually look and go, oh, I did that. What do I need to do to react? So I think I got it. I think I got it pretty as a solo. So anyway, so that's where we're at. That's going to be another. I'm looking at a March release for that. And again, we're pushing everything off so we have a better dual cast stuff coming in. Kind of work and hit the ground. Lots of new things down for 2021. Hopefully, 2020 was going to be the year of CAV, but COVID. So hopefully, that and go for it again. So any other questions anybody has about that before we jump off onto our next? That worked out almost perfect. 8:30. Half the show.
Half the show.
Half the show.
I mean, I've said everything I thought about it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
can't wait to get my hands on it.
Not a whole lot to say about it. Once we start kind of coming up with an idea of things we can look at again, come back and pitch it with her. Another thing that I wanted to talk about tonight, again, kind of from Saturday's gameplay and everything, things that you can do as a player to speed up your game. This day and time, everybody talks about, you know, well, I've only got so long. I've only got an hour. I've only got 2 hours, which is going to limit the size of the game. What are some things that, and this will kind of come from me and James, things that we found as we play, but again, if you're in the chat, you know, tell us things that you do, speed things up. You know that we've talked about, you know, a lot of, especially like the strike point, even with it set up right now, and even if it changes to, you know, I always tell everybody right off the bat, when you're making a strike point roll, just roll the 2d6 right off. Generally, and after you play 2 or 3 games, you kind of those numbers. So, you know, generally, if you roll a 2, 3, 4, 5, you're not on target. So I don't need to sit there and figure, you know, because you get kind of an idea of, if you've got APA running or something like that, kind of already know in your head what your modifiers are. If you're firing from long range, you know, got a Wizzo or whatever, you know that you've got a 2 or 3 helper points of help. So, if you're rolling 5s, chances are you're not. So that's one thing that I think saves a lot of time. Don't bother figuring up your so you roll,
Mm-hmm.
and then take a second to see if you're. What are some things that you like to do?
So I mean, I think you know my best ideas are the ones that probably apply to all games, but they apply to CAV just as well. As work out ahead of time what you're going to do. Talk to your opponent during the over the course of the week. Typically, the way I play is I schedule a game. I'll yell at Cthulhu here in the chat and I'll say, "Hey, let's play," which is something we need to do, Cthulhu. And during the course of the week, we can go. All right, here's the scenario. Here's the layout. Here's the points. Here's what I'm bringing for terrain, so we can get the stuff set up so that when you show up at the shop wherever you're going to play, you can minimize the setup time and the debate and like, oh, how many points you want to play? I'm going to build a list. I mean, your downtime, when you're waiting at a for to pick up the kid from school, or you're waiting to drop something off. There's time for you to sit down and make your list, or at least puzzle it out and think about what you're going to do. So you can save quite a bit of time, I think, if you just show up prepared to play. Rolling, like multiple weapons with just different colored sets of
Yes.
dice. I saw you to do that over the weekend. That's a trick almost everybody that's been playing miniature games knows to do, but just be prepared for that. If you've got a guy with 4 heavy particle bolt guns, make sure you have 4 sets of light colored pairs of dice.
Yeah. No, you're much better off to just roll multiple dice. Even like even like the Starhawk, when Nate was firing for him, and afterward, you can very easily, you know, my red and my purple are my guided missiles.
Hmm.
I can do all 4 of them right there.
Right.
Let's see. The hobby habit, speeding up for me, usually just getting into a rhythm between myself and opponent. Step 1, step 2. Yeah, and that's really, in the grand scheme of things, that's a big chunk of it. Is you get used to playing with certain people. The slowest games are always the pickup games. You come into the store, you're at a convention or whatever, and 2 people that have never played together at a tournament, you sit down at the game, and it seems like that first hour is just learning each other about things, how they do, because you're used to, you know, uh, doing something at your home game that everybody knows that you do, or however you do it, or whatever, and you just take for granted, and you don't do should do at a tournament or whatever, and you get the wrong person that pick. It can be that can definitely slow a game. So that's always good. Being used. Um, One thing too that I had thought, that might be kind of fun to do is put out an optional damage table, as opposed to right now the table is weighted, for you to do 1, 2, and 3 points of damage, with critical. I was thinking of that the other day. It might be fun to put a different table together that uses the same ranges, but instead of, you know 1 to 3 points, it could be 1 to 5 points. You could weight it so that
Mm.
you hit the 2s and the 3s a lot, um, than you normally would. I think that would be certainly make the game a little more deadlier.
That would fundamentally change the nature of the
Yeah,
game. I mean, this is a game where the average shot does 1 point of damage. And so it's to your advantage oftentimes to take as many shots as possible, to have, like out of those 8 shots, you're going to get 5 or 6 points of damage because you're going to hit and do 1.5 or 6 times. If you change that chart, then it might be worthwhile to chase the height of the damage instead of the width of the
right.
damage. by rolling a lot for lots of ones, you could build a force that tried to get fours and fives in their, as their damage result on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, like I said,
Might be
it
interesting.
would just be, and it's just something to play around with and try it out to see how it ends up. I know that the original, because the damage system is the same from CAV1, as far as how you
Mhm,
determine if in CAV1 you would roll 2d6, defender would roll 2d. He would add his
mhm,
armor, any benefits like
mhm,
trees or whatever to his roll. You would roll the damage that your weapon did, pluses that you got for whatever that you had. And then if the defender wins, you're done, didn't hit, or get through the armor. Then if the attacker won, you took the margin of success. So if you needed your defender rolled at a 12 and you ended up rolling a 20, your margin of success was 8. And it had one little chart there that, if you win by this number, this is how much damage it takes, or this is where critical thing goes in. So that system
mhm,
is totally the same. The only difference that we did with it is we took out the defender rolling die. This is
mhm,
my feeling, especially if you're doing 4 or 5 attacks on the same guy from the same deal. Now you basically doubled the weight
mhm,
on it, and both of you are trying to figure numbers from. So by the target numbers that we for the range bands are basically averaged rolls that you're rolling against. You can roll better than average, you're going to hit and probably do damage. Roll below average, you're not going to do anything. So
mhm,
you're really rolling against the curve as opposed to whatever the chance are from the other. And that's
mhm,
really in that original game in Cat One. That's why the D10 worked. Okay,
mhm,
because you wasn't rolling against the average, you was other. So you could have whatever random number. But, if you rolled a 2 and you rolled a 10 or whatever, it didn't. Obviously, you're going to get a better roll out of it, but it wasn't. He had just as much chance to roll that 10 as you. So, that part of it. By when we moved it to the average rolls, that's one of the reasons we had to go switch to 2, is because we needed the curve. Average either beat. So I know that's come up in a couple of conversations. Why did you switch to? Well, that's one of the reasons. We needed the curve. We needed the curve to make it work. And um, and some people like it, some people don't like it. But I think more people are comfortable rolling d6s too
mhm.
than other dice. I think rolling d10s is kind of weird. Um, to me, a d4 is easier to roll just because of the you get a roll and it falls flat and you see what the number. Same thing with 12s and 20 sides. I think those just kind of got. I mean, I know how it works. The dice. So, you know, hate me if you want to.
It's John's
It's
game.
my game. My game. You're
Yep.
just borrowing it. Yes, do
Wait
not
a
step
minute.
on defense.
Are you telling me that the miniatures I have are only
They
licensed?
are.
I didn't
They
purchase
are.
those?
If you look at the fine
Ah.
print on the back of them, they actually remain our property. Yeah.
I remain your property.
Like
John.
it's like video game software. You don't really own
Yeah,
it. Just
seriously.
borrowed
John, you need to hurry up and paint your licensed miniatures
it.
then.
Get those out
Um,
there. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Another thing that I think that helps speed up the game too. I had that in my. It was a short trip.
You want me to jump
Losing one.
in?
Yeah. Why don't you jump in and
Okay, so
while I'm thinking of what I was
so this
thinking
is
of.
gonna sound like a really big idea, but And it's not meant to be chastising or mean, but know the rules. I mean, there's a lot of little intricacies to the way that, ECM and counter ECM work, or APA, what's the range of it? Where can you be? Who does it affect? What does it do? Um, I mean, if you just know the rules pretty well to the point where you're not having to look things up in the rule book, you can actually play the game instead of having to sort of, flip through the rule book a third of the time while you're actually trying to play the game. If the best games that I've ever been in any game system, but CAV especially, is when I've been able to play a person who's about my level of play, um, and who also understands the rules. And so he or she and I are able to just sit there and just go, okay, I'm moving, I'm shooting, I'm declaring against these guys. Here comes my squad, your turn. The turns go back and forth. It's dynamic. Take a minute to think. You can kind of see what the other person, how their head is spinning. You get a chance to really enjoy the tactical part of the game instead of like, wait a minute, where's the ECM rules, how does this work? So just take the time, watch John's playthroughs, maybe even take notes, go through the rule book and the FAQ to make sure that you really know how APA works, and just come to the table prepared. And again, I'm not trying to criticize anybody. I mean, I'd love to play a brand new player. I don't
Right.
care. I just want to play CAV. But if you're talking about speeding up the game, when the two people both know the rules, game goes by so fast, it's
I
great.
promise I won't change them too once you learn them, you'll be able to stick with them. Uh, and that's very frustrating when I get a new player or something. They don't know the rules, come up with the system or whatever, and they're just, oh, this game just takes forever, or you can't play anything, or like that. And it's just it's a it's like any game. I can think back of my first game of everything, and just keep checking the book and everything like that. So, um, I see it with when you guys play. I see, two new players sit down with a dictator versus a dictator, and an hour and a half later, they're still going at each other. Trying to run each other down, and then I see the guys sit down with 20 or 25 models to a side, and 2.5 hours they're done. So it does. It makes, and the reference sheet is great. I've tried to make it as condensed and easy to read as I think where it needs to be on that side of it. I think especially if you're using the color cards, with the way that everything's on the back now, where it's very easy to, and we worked on those. I went through those descriptions, each essay, and tried to literally condense it down to the smallest number of words. And I think I hit it pretty close. I mean, there's a couple of them that ended up being a little wordy, but that have multiple options. But most of them are 10 words or less. This is how it goes. And so I think that's helped a lot. I think that's helped people have things quicker. The one thing that I was trying to think of that I forgot is back when we were talking about making multiples. One of the things and this is probably me getting old, so this is probably not so much for the younger guys, but I find that once I know what my target number is I always try to keep an extra dice, so that if I know that I need sixes, I just set that on a 6 and then roll. And that way I don't have to think back in my head and what was that number again? Or, I need to refigure it or whatever. I've got that number, and I can just take those sets and set them next to that number and know immediately, oh, this is done. This, I can throw these aside, and then I've got these two, and I can go down the list right quick and do. I'm not, in my point, I get thinking about something else or get off target or something like that. And what was that number again? And rather than have to sit there and figure the modifiers up, the dice is right there, the number. I find that helps me with the thing in there. Now, one of the things that came up that we were talking about Saturday again too is because there's 2 or 3 ways that you can go about it. Is what is the easiest way to come up with that target point? have things that add and we have subtract. Um, the what I always try to do though is I try to get everything down to one. So I know that I've seen some people play where they take all their this away from this and add it all to this, but I try to take it all off the target point. So if I know that if I start with a range band that I need a 7, I take away the minuses right quick and then add the pluses back, that base number that I'm rolling again. And to me, that the quickest way that I found to play, and it's, I see some people, take the negative numbers away from the target point and then add the positive numbers or take the negative numbers and add to the target point, or take the positive numbers and add to the roll, split that all up. To me, that just doesn't work out very good. So I always try to, when I'm teaching new players, is just start with your target point, take away the negatives, add the positives, and that's the number you're. How do you do it?
So, to be honest with you, it just varies. I so most of the games I play are against new players. Um, I do a lot of, like teaching locally, and so I usually let them go with whatever makes them happy. I'll explain to them what we're doing,
Right.
and whatever method is they're happy with, I'll just adapt it. Personally, what I like to do is just come up with one giant number. It's like, here's my to hit. Like you said, I need a 7. I've got a +1 and a -2. That means I really need an 8. Roll the dice, add strict armor, MOS.
Yeah, and don't try to add all those numbers on, you know, each individual roll. I think if you can get that, like I said, get that base number and you roll and you just
Mhm.
know every time that this, now you're going here, I need to
Right.
add my damage and look at your arm
Mhm.
that it goes. And I know that there's games out there that do things simpler. And there's a million ways to do things. We did a lot of the reasons we do things though the way that we do them is there's actually a reason. Say, okay, let's sit down and let's reinvent the wheel, or let's try to make everything as hard as we can or easy as. Um, there is some design philosophy behind some choices. One of the things that um, I I and this is probably being a player back to those things is I don't like Yahtzee games. Okay, I don't like a game where I roll, the whole successes, stuff like that. Kind of weird. I get, I roll a d6 for every attack. My attack is a 3. If I roll a 3 or better, I do damage. Your armor, you get to save. I'm not trying to point
Mhm.
anybody out, but those are just rock, scissors, papers to me. Just rolling dice to be dice. There's not a lot of always to me great a lot of more tactics. So when I was doing CAV, I tried to find the medium ground. I didn't want
Mhm.
advanced squad leader, but I didn't want Yahtzee either. So
Yeah.
that's the point of where that goes, and trying to get the system down to one dice roll. That was a big plus. I
Mhm.
didn't want to have I didn't want to have a hit roll and then a damage roll. I wanted one roll, and that's we figure everything. So
Mhm.
sometimes maybe it takes a little extra time to figure out a number or whatever, but you're also saving time because you're not making a secondary.
Right.
One roll, I tell you what it is, and there. Um, and that's one of the reasons too, the way that we do the range. You roll against the worst number. I hated having, uh, if you're firing 3 different range weapons that need a 6 for this, and a 7 for this, and an 8 for this, that just
Mhm.
slowed the game up. trying to roll and which goes to that number and refiguring this, coming up with that. Now it works strictly off of whatever the low number is, whatever the worst number is, and there's, in the mythology of the game, we put it, for that in. But that's really why it comes back to is we're wanting you to roll against one number and not figure up a dozen. So that's where some of that comes. And not to mention that system saves recon model because in CAV1 and CAV2, it was you think recon models get killed now? You were lucky to be alive after turn 2 because literally, especially with the long ranges, that's the first thing that they did is they house of everybody that they could kill over there. And guys had no whatsoever. I was very impressed by the fact that in my second game on Saturday, the Con got the kill on the Talon, got the kill on the Thunderbird, took no damage.
Because that Emperor soaked up a lot of firepower.
The Emperor soaked up a lot of fire for that stuff. But I said it was, everybody is always, recon models never last. Hey, my recon model got 2 kills and never took a point of damage. I don't want to hear.
Yeah, but you were playing a mediocre opponent.
That is true. Cheated. The Talon had invisible.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other things that they suggest that help speed up the game, or things that you think that we can do? What is something? Do you have a suggestion? Is there a better way to do something that you think that we do that's stupid? That's just dumb. Why does he do it that way?
Seriously. I mean, there's nothing dumb about the game, I don't think.
I try not to. I mean, and that's where the special abilities came. That's my other pet peeve. How everybody is so cookie cutter. There's no. You just change somebody up because of their armor. There's nothing that makes that guy special or anything. Obviously, and not digging on it or anything like that. It just falls back because we don't have a lot of mech games to choose from, really. But that was one of the things that I always hated about the other mech was this guy, this 20-ton guy and this 100-ton guy. They're the very same guy. If they both have a medium laser, this one just has more armor. It takes longer to kill him. But there's no difference. And I think with the special abilities and the upgrades that you can on there make a lot different, a little more unique. I know in the last few years that other game has tried to do that, but it kind of got bolted on at the end. So you already had a process that was very, very long and slow to play. Now you've thrown on another very long. Really didn't help speeding the thing up, I don't think. Anyway, so what is something else? What is something else you want to talk about tonight, James? I have once again managed to say an entire 30 minutes worth of stuff on one breath.
Yeah, you got to talk slower, John.
Yes,
come on, stretch this stuff out.
Well, we're good. We got 5 minutes here. We're doing good on time.
So, I mean, man, I'm excited about the idea for the cards. I mean, the idea of, just having a little variety in the game is nice. Something where you can have a, like an event, an unexpected event occur in the game is a fun thing to me. The idea of you potentially releasing cards and miniatures together, I'm excited to see that. You made the comment earlier that you might have a card that was tied to a figure. Yeah. I'm not obviously we don't know what that means in terms of the rules yet, but
I don't even know what it means yet. Other than that's just an idea. Now we have to figure out how to make it work. That's how about 90% of everything gets done around Hey, cow boss. What? What's the thing today? This. All right. Well, how are we going to
Yeah.
do that? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Make it work.
How do we get tacos into the CAV
Yes.
game? You know,
Yes. How
that
do we
sort of
make
thing.
Taco Tuesday in the game?
Um, so I just totally off subject. This week I was thinking about the fact that CAV is a futuristic game. It's not been destroyed and bombed back into
Right.
barbarism. It's not low tech, garage builds. There's social media. There's got internet. There's a galactic net, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's got to be the equivalent of Facebook and Twitter and places like that. So I was just wondering, what's that like? What is it? How how does social media interact in the CAV universe? What do people talk about? I mean, do the event in Adon space, are they talked about in Terra? Does any news come out of Rock? Do the people on CAV Twitter find some particular guy fascinating? I know in the Almirathal backstory, there's there's a little blurb about a Hakir unit that wouldn't fight against the rebels during the Civil War, that still stayed loyal to Adenese. And there's an article in there. There's a little bit in there that says that one of the pilots was part of like a essentially a TV show recently, and he had become very popular because of that. And so that's the kind of RPG style thing that I'm interested to learn more about in CAV.
Well, and it's something I've given a little bit of thought to, but not really, and it hasn't come up to where we have to get put it on paper. And um, again, falling back to some of how the game universe would have to work, whatever like that is, communications are still limited by the same whatever. You can get up everything to the speed of light or whatever, but if you're 4.5 years away, it
Hmm.
still takes 4.5 years for that information to go.
Okay.
So what I would imagine is most of that stuff stays pretty localized. I think that there's going to
Hmm.
be some news organizations stuff out there that move things around, that keeps some offices between um, the Templars and stuff like that, may in those areas where they go. But to me, I would think that most of that stuff would work off of as ships travel. When a
Hmm.
when a ship is getting ready to leave a certain area or whatever, a planet may beam a certain amount of data that ship takes, and then when it goes to its next port, that data is transmitted out. So to me, that would probably be kind of how that system would work. Or you would have special message torpedoes, that
Hmm.
stuff was loaded into, that was able to
Hmm.
go into hyperspace, and because they don't have to worry about getting the
People.
sickness or anything like that, that
Hmm.
they can send it a lot further at it, something like that. To me, that's probably how a lot of the military works, with some kind of a communication torpedo. I mean, it's not really
Hmm.
that, some
Yeah.
thing that,
A
yeah, a
drone.
drone, the communication drone that they send out at like
Mhm.
go in a lot
That can
shorter of
jump.
time. Yeah, because
Right.
I would think too that probably the jump gates would have a lot to do with that too. Jump gates are connected to other that communication. They probably information back instantaneously.
Mm.
Maybe by the same wormhole that they're connected to or whatever. Maybe
Mhm.
the way that they're connected is they can actually talk to each other in real time, or something
That would
like
be
that. So
interesting. See, to me, those are the kind of things. I mean, the idea. Let me back up a step. Understanding the model by which long range communications operate is fundamental to really being able to tell the CAV story. If communications are super hard over long distances, then everything happens locally. And so, Commander A and Commander B might get in a fight when their commander, their superiors, are making peace
Right,
somewhere else. I mean, that kind of thing could easily happen. If communications are easier, maybe not simultaneous, instantaneous, but easier. Then suddenly, those two sub commanders get yelled at by their commanders. Hey, stop! No fighting. We're
Well,
trying to sort this
right,
thing out.
and
There's a big
I
difference
think
there.
that that would probably be something that probably comes up quite a bit in college, because I think that they are going to have limits to how fast that information goes through, and it may be, Adon and Ritter, go to war, and 6 months later they all meet together and it's kumbaya and everybody's good and things like that. But the war goes on for another 3 months, because
Mhm.
by the time they get word out to everybody, and units,
Stop
yeah,
fighting.
units that are in communication blackout for an attack or something like that, yeah, you're going to have that. Just like, you know, they've shown it in several movies and come up before like that is, when they declared the armistice, World War One, people still died for several days after that was done.
Mhm.
They didn't know. They hadn't got word yet that they were done.
I mean, there are documented stories of World War II Japanese soldiers who didn't who were still fighting the war in the 80s.
You would think
John.
after that many years the clue phone would have rang, but you never know. So okay. So we've reached our 9 o'clock. Is there anything anybody wants to? I noticed chat's got kind of quiet again on us tonight, but is there something right quick that you wanted us to touch or talk about? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I always kind of figure if they're not by now throwing
Yeah.
something in, they'll wait till next week. And again, anytime if there's something that comes up in the week that you're like, man, I really need them to cover next Wednesday or whatever,
Mhm.
please send me an email, send me a message, drop something on our Facebook. Give us enough advance warning that I can discuss things and put things together if it's something that hasn't normally. Other than that, I guess this is our last show before Christmas. I
Mhm.
believe Chris will be on Saturday. We'll be sculpting.
Mhm.
He may or may not be working on the mastodon.
Ooh, that's a
So,
big
so
deal.
we'll see how that rolls out. I'm promising that conversation was had the other day. Other than that, you'll be back next Monday. Yep.
Mhm.
And go next week. But as far as that, I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, or Happy Hanukkah, or Happy Kwanzaa, or whatever that your particular faith or following goes with. Happy holidays for sure, and back.
Yes, we will.
So everybody, be safe, have fun. Uh, Remember, we're not done with this COVID thing yet, so don't too crazy. Try to help out. Let's get this thing done and over with, and be
Right.
safe. So
Be safe.
good night, James.
Take care, everybody. Good night.